we just had something go right over the top of us that could almost look like a cruise missile type of thing, moving really fast.
He's telling them there are these unidentified objects at my wingtips and below me, and I don't know what to do.
I had something like this on the video. The first thing I did was I emailed the FAA to let them know what I saw, and maybe it was a safety hazard.
On the 14th of April, 2019, a passenger sitting at the window seat of a plane saw something breathtaking, but it wasn't the view. Right from the window, this passenger saw a UFO flying right by the plane. This wouldn't be the only air passenger that would see something like that. In this video, we're diving into real passenger sightings recorded from commercial flights that defy logic, science, and maybe even government explanation. The LaGuardia Airport NYC sighting. The sighting on 14th of April 2019 was spooky, but the one on April 25, 2024 would send chills down your body. On that day, just above LaGuardia Airport in New York City, Michelle Reyes was just another passenger flying with her daughter. Instead of checking her social media with her phone, Michelle decided to film New York's skyline from her window seat. It was a beautiful skyline, but it was about to become more special in a way that she'd never have imagined. Suddenly, something zipped past the plane, and Michelle's eyes widened in amazement and horror at the same time. What did she see? What she saw wasn't a bird or another plane. It wasn't even a drone. What she saw was a cylindrical object flying at insane speed, so fast that if she had seen it without recording, she would have thought she was seeing things. Michelle replayed the footage over and over and still thought she was seeing things. Maybe what she saw was because of a camera glitch, but after a couple of replays, she was certain it wasn't a camera error. The cylindrical flying object she saw was real. Believing the object could be dangerous, Reyes immediately emailed the FAA, hoping someone would take it seriously. They saw it, but they ignored it. It was like she never even contacted them. Getting a bit uneasy, Michelle tried again, but this time sending the footage to the National UFO Reporting Center. Still nothing. She didn't get an acknowledgement and didn't hear about an investigation in the news. Was the government trying to cover up what she saw? Was someone deliberately ignoring her? Or was this sighting a little too real for comfort? Fortunately, not everyone stayed silent. News houses circulated the video, asking for answers, and UFO experts were ready to give it. Ben Hansen, host of UFO Witness on Discovery Plus, watched the video and tracked Michelle down and interviewed her. He ran her footage through his verification tools, and guess what? No sign of editing. The video was real, just as Ben expected. He had talked to Michelle before verifying the video and concluded she wasn't the type of person that would lie about something like this. Another expert, Thomas Wertman, who spent a lifetime investigating UFO sightings as the Mutual UFO Network State Director in Ohio, also reviewed the clip. He calculated the object's speed and altitude and ruled out every conventional explanation. It wasn't a bug. Bugs don't fly at 230 miles per hour, and they definitely don't hover at 2,500 feet near commercial aircraft. Also, it wasn't a drone, because drones can't legally fly that high over LaGuardia. It definitely wasn't a plane, because planes don't look like cylinders with no wings or tail. And no, it wasn't a bird, a balloon, or some digital glitch. So what was it? And here's the creepiest part. Michelle wasn't the only one who saw it. Another woman on the flight, who wasn't recording, saw the exact same thing out her window. So there are two eyewitnesses, video evidence, and yet complete radio silence from the authorities. So now we're left with questions. Why didn't the FAA respond? Why did the National UFO Reporting Center ignore Michelle's email? And most importantly, What was that thing flying doing in the same airspace of a commercial airline? Are the skies of New York safe? All of these are questions that need answers, but just as the FAA ignored Michelle Reyes, they are ignoring everyone else. The South Korean passenger sighting. What Michelle Reyes said sparked a wider discussion, but the sighting on April 7th, above Seoul, South Korea, is something else entirely. And here's what we mean. Just like Reyes, a passenger sitting by the window of a commercial flight filmed what looked like a glowing, oval-shaped white object. The object hovered silently outside the plane before flying away. The video blew up. It was and is still a major talking point when it comes to discussions about UFOs. People wonder the same thing. Is the video real or is it fake? Then there's the section of people who don't think it is real or fake. They believe it was a plastic bag that the wind kicked up or even a parachute. Another set of people just clicked their fingers and called the object a bug. Get this, a couple of folks saw it and called it a droplet of water. These are definitely interesting perspectives. So, what's yours? Bug, parachute, UFO, or doctored? Just like Rhea's video, this one was also analyzed, and what analysts first noticed was, when the video started, the UFO was already in the frame. That raised some suspicions. It wasn't that the recorder was recording like Michelle Reyes with the UFO just flying past. What played out here was, the person saw the UFO, opened their video camera, and began to record what they saw without any form of excitement. Their hands were steady, they didn't alert anybody else in the plane, and just kept filming. That is some incredible level of self-control the person had, even when the camera doesn't even try to follow it. Instead, it just stays pointed at the same part of the sky for a short while. Normal reaction to seeing a UFO would have been using the camera to trace wherever it flew towards. The person's reaction was like the UFO was never actually there in real time, but was added afterwards. Visual effects expert Derek Serra, a Hollywood professional who's worked on films and shows, decided to also analyze the video. He noticed that the lighting on the UFO never changed when it moved, and according to Derek, an amateur edited the video, and so it's fake. However, what if the alien tech is so advanced that our cameras are incapable of properly recording it? What if the aliens designed their ship this way to allow us doubt and just assume all sightings are fake? Maybe they are one step ahead and trying to get us to relax our guard. Are we truly safe? Or are we just pawns in a cosmic game of chess? Sighting on flight to South Korea. As you ponder that question, we still remain in South Korea, where another resident had a sighting while flying from Thailand. Would this also be true, or would it be heavily debated, like the last South Korean sighting we just showed you? So, picture this. You're on a plane, cruising thousands of feet above Earth, and glance out of the window just to marvel at the fluffy clouds. However, instead of clouds, you see something else, something unusual. No, it's not a plane. Planes fly by each other regularly. What you saw was light. You probably think, what's special about lights? Well, this isn't sunlight, and I'm not talking about stars because you are flying during the day. What you saw is a cluster of lights. This was what happened to Lucas Kim when he was flying from Thailand to South Korea. He looked out of his window and saw 6 clusters of spheres of lights glowing with greenish-yellowish color. Immediately, Kim took his phone and recorded it, and one by one, the cluster of lights disappeared. Kim was excited. He believed the spheres he saw were some kind of vehicle for extraterrestrials or maybe Russian spy planes. That would be an incredible piece of Russian tech if those lights are planes. However, skeptics don't think Kim saw anything special. Some said it was a reflection of a pot of coffee being served by a flight attendant, but one of these skeptics, Scott Brando, a well-known UFO video analyst and professional hoax spotter, believes something else entirely. He claimed what Kim saw was not a reflection of light in a coffee pot, but reflection of light bouncing off the plane's winglet. Brando said the glowing cluster lines up perfectly with a reflective angle, and he may be right. If you squint hard enough, there's a faint mirrored spot near the so-called UFOs that kinda, sorta supports that theory. Kim had one reply for his skeptics. He said, "You can believe anything you want. Maybe it isn't sunlight reflecting from a coffee pot or the plane's wing. Because here's the thing, reflections don't split. They don't separate and move independently. They don't fly off into the sky like they're on a mission. So, could the lights be extraterrestrial vehicles like Lucas Kim believes? We are not saying they are, but we are also not saying they aren't. What do you think? The flying saucer. On the 14th of April, 2019, a passenger looked up from their window seat from an airplane and claimed to see something that he couldn't explain. So, he took out his phone and began to record. What this passenger claimed to see and record was a UFO, the typical flying saucer with lights all around it. The saucer hung in the air and slowly spun for around a minute. The saucer didn't accelerate, it just allowed people to see it. Then suddenly, it began to shoot balls of white lights from it continuously, and after a while, the saucer zipped off. This video dominated the internet for a while, and it raised a lot of questions. Skeptics asked why the video had that quality. The color of the UFO didn't look crispy for an object that flew so close to the plane. But apart from the video quality, there are other strange things about the video. There is no excitement from the person taking the video, but compared to what we noticed next, this is still mild. You can say the recorder was so captivated that they forgot to be excited. Even if they forgot to be excited, when the UFO was shooting out balls of white light, there was no visible evidence of a discharge of energy. There should have been a sound of some sort, at least if we go by Earth physics. But there wasn't. Maybe since it's an alleged UFO, the physics are different, and let's agree that it is. When the UFO zipped away, the camera stood still. It didn't trace the movement of the UFO. That's pretty suspicious if you ask us, but maybe the recorder was caught unawares by the sudden action of the UFO. Still, isn't it incredible that a UFO would just sit still in the air and allow people to just look at it for that long? Are the extraterrestrials so arrogant that they think humans are not even worth the effort of hiding from? Are there secretly aliens among us? Maybe we are even an alien that's telling you about UFO sightings. Just kidding. Or are we? We could be shapeshifters, just like this next UFO we are about to show you. The Alive UFO. On July 3, 2021, a German tourist was flying in a commercial airline when he noticed something weird shining outside his window at 30,000 feet. However, this thing wasn't light. It wasn't even a trick of light. This thing was translucent, and it was moving like it was alive. The object appears to be moved alongside the plane as if it was watching. Are you getting goosebumps? After getting over the shock of what he saw, he brought out his Nikon P900, which he used during his tourist trip. This camera is known for its insane zoom, and it was perfect for recording. He captured the shimmering white object floating in the sky, and just as he thought he had seen everything, this object began to change shape. The video went viral and was shared on social media platforms like X, formerly Twitter, and Reddit. Also, some popular news outlets began to report it, and the video continued to be popular among people. Even now, it is still being discussed in certain quarters, because the mystery behind it never really went away, and the government didn't explain it. So, people began to theorize and guess. Some viewers were quick to call the object a UFO, but with how it's alive, can we truly call it an object? Some other UFO believers didn't think it was a UFO. So, when they investigated the video, they concluded it was a biological entity, or even a plasma-based life form that lives in the upper atmosphere. Imagine that, a living being living in the skies. Is that cool, or is it dangerous? However, some people weren't so convinced. They believed what the German tourist saw was a reflection of the window glass. On a subreddit, users suggested that the object was a result of a refraction pattern, which occurred when light waves change speed as they pass through densities like air. Other people on that board just concluded that the object was a huge water droplet outside the plane's window. Other analysts said the object was part of a stray weather balloon. Then, in a strange suggestion, one person claimed it was swamp gas. Swamp gas can't move that way, or even keep pace with a plane flying at around 30,000 feet for a solid 7 minutes. This video looks real, and that UFO looks like a living being, but without an official explanation. What is going on? Are aliens observing us and planning an attack? What if they are already attacking? The Ryan Air Attack. There have been some reports about UFOs attacking humans. One of the most notable ones was the one in Russia, where aliens from a crashed UFO turned human beings to stones. However, there was another one that went under the radar. On September 5, 2015, passengers boarded a Ryanair Boeing 737 plane in the Netherlands. They were flying to Spain, and the journey was a smooth one, until suddenly there was a thick, dark smoke in the sky. The passengers in the plane began to panic, but fortunately, the smoke wasn't coming from the plane's engines. However, this didn't mean they were safe. The smoke was from a dark object that looked like a moving mass of thick shadow, and it began to fly dangerously close to the plane. The object seemed to be inches from crashing into the plane's wing, but the pilot saw it and banked immediately to avoid the object. The plane groaned under the stress of that sudden change in direction, and the passengers thought that would be their last flight. However, because of that sudden maneuver, the passengers in that plane survived to ask the same question. What was the flying object that almost hit them? The object was captured on video by a Dutch passenger who was trying to record the view because she enjoyed it so much. She posted it, explaining the events that happened on the plane 4 minutes after she made the recording. Still, despite her recording, many people believed the pilots may have overreacted. The Dutch passenger was angry and claimed that the pilots did what was right because the object looked hostile. However, people who doubted the seriousness of the encounter claimed what the passengers and pilots were afraid of was nothing more than a black bird. The question is, can a bird fly that high? The Dutch called that claim nonsense because no bird could reach the heights the plane was. Unfortunately, there has been no explanation for what happened, and so people still remain divisive on it. What do you think? Was that a bird, or was it a UFO? Our skies may not be as safe as we thought. The people of Singapore wondered the same thing too in 2016. The Singapore near miss. On January 17, 2017, a couple of tourists boarded Singapore Airlines for Switzerland. They were already imagining a fun time cooling off the stress of work and enjoying the relaxing scenery that Switzerland had to offer. The flight to Switzerland was uneventful, and as they began to descend to the airport's runway in Switzerland, a passenger brought out their phone to record their descent. Just as the passenger was recording, he saw something. A white object flying with incredible speed nearly hit them as they were descending. The pilot also noticed this too, and slightly tilted to the side to avoid collision with the object. The passengers panicked at what happened, but the pilot was able to execute the maneuver, making sure everyone was safe. Different explanations popped up on the web about the nature of the object. Because it was too fast, people couldn't really see what it was. Some people suggested it could have been a drone, but those that disagreed with that explanation insist that a drone can't be that big. These people also argue that the plane's radar would have picked up the drone long before the near collision, and that the airport would not even have allowed a drone to fly that close to planes legally. No one knows what really happened, but everyone was grateful to have avoided a plane crash. Some of the sightings we have shown you in this video have challenged skeptics, and others are just plain fake. From the near collision with the planes to the UFOs just zipping past the plane's window, which sighting is your favorite? Is it the one in New York or the shape-shifting one? Let us know in the comments. Since you made it this far, we hope you really loved the video, and we'd love it if you can like it and subscribe to this channel for more sightings. See you next time.